Good morning, Messy Sisterhood. It's Thursday, and you've almost made it to Friday. Welcome to Thursday Thoughts with the Messy Sisterhood. We've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks as we've been preparing here in our house for a graduation that happened yesterday. So I'm happy to be back with you this week on Thursday Thoughts. So much has been going on, and I've missed being with you. I do appreciate those who have reached out and who have encouraged me and reminded me not to stop doing these videos. So I do appreciate you so much. How are you guys doing this morning? It is Thursday and you've almost made it to Friday. We have just had a huge day yesterday in our house with our oldest son, firstborn, graduating from high school. And so I just have a few reflections on that this morning. When you are the graduate, especially in high school, right? You're 17, 18 years old. Your reflectiveness is not real sharp per se. And you're very in the moment and how it's going for you. And I didn't realize until I walked through it on my own how just emotional and poignant and all those things are for your parents when that's happening. No one could have prepared me. And, the wise people in my life who had walked through this before, they knew that you just have to experience it. And we were just really blessed. We weren't just really blessed because, we think we have the best son in the world. Of course we do. And those kinds of things. But one of the things, there were three things that really hit me yesterday, and I'm just going to go over those with you today. Seeing as it's graduation season, and there are a lot of our friends and family who are in the same stage or coming up on the same stage. Or maybe it's time to reflect because, it's been a few years since you've been in this spot. Number one, man. When I read 1 Corinthians 13 about love and how true love, unconditional love is supposed to be, I realized yesterday, for like the umpteenth time, but just so vividly to me, that real love doesn't keep record of wrongs. Because as I stood and was able to be part of the ceremony to present my son with his diploma, I realized that I could not have stood there and even told you one thing that he needed to fix or bring up an old issue or something. And you know what it's like raising teenagers. You're constantly having conversations and one-sided conversations and so many things. But really, there was no listing of how I would change him or fix him or anything that I only saw my son. I only saw the heart that I know he has and how proud I am of him. And that just sunk so deep down inside my heart because sometimes, especially, I guess today I'm speaking specifically to parents, but even, as wives and just as people, we constantly look back and make a list for ourselves of all the things that we needed to do differently. And so, yes, of course, learn and make different choices moving forward. But it just hit me so extremely, so vividly, that is what God is like when he looks at us. He loves fully and unconditionally. And there isn't a list sitting on the platform or on the podium next to him to remind him of all of the things where we have fallen short. Instead, he looks at us and he just beams with that love that says, that is my child. That's my child. And I was just overwhelmed. Because, being a parent of a teenager is not simple. And it's not for the faint of heart. You are really working hard to lay ground rules and teach accountability and so many things. And sometimes you go to bed at night. I guess this is true all along the parenting journey, but you go to bed at night and you feel like the only word you've said all day is no. I remember when the kids were younger, one of them told me, and I'll keep it nameless, but he said, I don't like you today. You're being the no fun mom. And I was like, oh, no fun mom is here to stay. Like, and you know, God does that with us sometimes too. Sometimes the answer is no. It's just no. We call it a holy no because, you know, we can trust him and we know that whatever it is he's saying no to, it's no. But I was just really stuck in that spot, feeling so loved by God and so grateful to have been able to walk with my child to this point. And knowing that I fell short and fall short as a mom, you know, I can make the list pretty long. But in that moment, God is the one who was faithful. He was faithful to me because without him, I couldn't pick my head up off the pillow some days, right? He's faithful to my son. He's already gone ahead of him into all the places that that my son is his next journey is taking him. He's already preparing those spaces, the spaces I can't be in with him, the spaces I don't get to walk in with him. You know, I will always be there to support him and give him good counsel and all those kinds of things. But where my son gets to take his next adventure, he doesn't go alone. And I don't go alone because guess what? That transition is going to be huge for me, right? Because we homeschooled. So my kids have been physically with me all through their schooling years. So not in a way that like, you know, we trap them or anything. We're part of a great homeschool community and connections and things like that. But this is a space where he gets to walk on his own. And he can come back to me for anything he needs or his dad or anything like that. But this is a space where God's already being faithful in the things that I can't even see yet. You know, and I was just overwhelmed. I was really just overwhelmed. Because so often we get this picture of God and his love that is about a checklist of right and wrong and what we're doing and how we're earning and how the balance and the scales are gonna come out in the end. And when I looked at my son yesterday, I realized if this is an ounce of what God looks at with us, I can't even imagine the love that comes from the Father for us. Because I'm not sitting there saying, well, he better get a good job. Well, he better get into this. Well, he better not do that thing that he does and all this kind of stuff. No, that's my child. Look at him. Because all of us are a miracle. And that was the second thing that really hit me. And it's something that it just is a theme for me this year. Each life is a miracle. And I say that because I'm realizing so much that it was decisions from generations ago, right? So your grandparents, your great-grandparents, all those kinds of things, they make one choice. They're in, you know, one situation. They decide not to marry that person, right? Now, all these things have to happen for you to be here in this moment, in this time. And we stand on the shoulders of the generations who have gone before us. And it was so awesome for me yesterday to be at my son's graduation, who's the oldest of my side of the family's great-grandchildren. I mean, he's my parents' oldest grandchild as well, but he was the first great-grandchild. And when I was born, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, graduated from high school. So the first graduation I ever went to was my uncle's, and I think I was 4. And they put those little elastic caps on us, like the graduates wore. And I remember sitting in the bleachers at his high school and yelling and hollering. And of course, there's pictures and things. But that uncle came to my son's graduation. And it just, in reflecting last night, I realized, you know, it's the concept of one generation calling out to another, you know. We might not always see each other all the time. We might not always be connecting to each other physically, but it's not just biological genetic connections, you know. It's about being engaged and involved. And you know, my grandmother, my mom and my uncle and my aunt Joreen and my uncle Greg and my Nana, she's not here. David James was 4 when she passed, and it's this month that we remember that it was 14 years ago. And she was just such a huge part of my heart and my life. And having him there, having him with my mom there, it was like having a little piece of her there too. And knowing that she would be proud. You know, we all mess up. That verse that talks about being surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we all mess up. But when people really love us, when it's that deep love, whether it's genetically connected to somebody or it's family that you've chosen or whatever it is, they cheer for you. They cheer for you. And I think sometimes we get kind of tunnel vision and we forget that there are people that love us and are cheering for us, because we're so quick to pick on ourselves, to magnify our weaknesses and our flaws. And that's really not God's way of doing things. God says, in your weakness, I get to be strong. So, you know, he talks about glorying in your weakness, but, you know, he's saying, like, obviously you can't do everything. Obviously you can't, but we get so, like this, right? Like, it's only me and I'm all alone and nobody cares and nobody sees me. And there are always those nights where it's like, you just feel alone, even though you might be laying in the bed next to somebody else, you know, and you're not alone, but you feel alone. And all of those worries, all of those vulnerabilities are rolling through your head, right? And yesterday at that graduation, all I could think was, I know that my son will know those vulnerabilities. That's being human. But I hope that he will be able to tap back into these memories where it's not just because it's a threshold day, but it was an opportunity day for those people to circle around him. And just blessed beyond measure, like just that every person is a miracle, because there's plenty of opportunities for things not to go right to get to that point, right? So just grateful and overwhelmed. And lastly, the thing that hit me was, if I don't work intentionally to be in the moment, then I lose the opportunity to see all of the God things in my life each day. So let me just unpack that for a second. When I started schooling my children in homeschooling, you know, in kindergarten, James went to a traditional classroom for kindergarten, and they say, you know, you're the class of 2022. Well, that was quite some time ago. And 13 years ago, actually. And it feels very far away. And along the way, I had seasons of trying to remember to live in the moment with my kids. And as I get to the point where my oldest is graduating and you're trying to gather pictures and things like that, something that became apparent to me was that I could immediately tell the seasons where I was struggling personally by looking at the pictures that I had of my children in those seasons. Because in many of my more healthy seasons, or in my seasons where I was really honestly leaning on God the most and really giving a lot of attention to my relationship with my family, my husband, my children, and my Lord, number one, and my friendships. In those seasons, I was in those pictures. There were plenty of pictures of me with my kids and me doing this and doing that, myself and my husband, those kinds of things. In the seasons where I was really struggling as a person, which everybody's going to have, I'm not even downplaying that. But in the seasons where I was struggling as a person, I could tell because I disappeared in those pictures, in those seasons. And the pictures of those seasons were much more limited, right? Because sometimes you go into default, right? You go into isolation mode or whatever that you need to heal or that you need to deal with. And one of the things that my son pointed out to me as we were looking through those pictures, there's a couple of them that he didn't really care for, but I thought were the cutest thing ever, and he said, well, Mom, I guess that we're all learning that we have to love ourselves in every season. And I said, dude, you're 18. Like, when did you not love yourself, right? And he said, oh, Mom, I can look at those pictures and remember where we were in those times, right? And what an extreme self-check that was for me. You know, sometimes we think, you know, we talk about self-care and things like that, and we think that it's all about the physicalness of taking care of ourselves, which is important and it's often lost along the way in different seasons, right? But I realized that a huge piece of that is not to put pressure on ourselves, but to realize that when we are taking good care of ourselves, when we are checking in and being accountable with friends, and when we are putting time and energy into our relationship with God daily, moment by moment, and we are investing in our children and in our relationships in our family and with our spouses and things like that. The truth is, if I had laid those pictures down, I would have thought that the pictures of me in bad seasons would have lined up with really tough seasons of our life. Tough financial seasons, tough job-oriented seasons, tough family seasons, loss of people, that kind of thing. But that is not the case. The seasons where I was missing were the seasons when I was trying to do everything in my own strength. It wasn't even like that there was a pinnacle really hard time. And in those pinnacle really hard times, I was really aware of everything that I couldn't do, and I was leaning into God hard, and my girlfriends were calling me and checking on me, and I was making sure that I was sitting with my kids, because, you know, when you lose someone, you become very immediately aware of the people that you still have. And there was just so much that when I looked back, I thought, oh, look at that lost time. And, you know, I'm part of a group called Homeschool Moms Pray, and their verse for this year is about redeeming the time. And I thought, okay, Lord, I hear you, right? Yesterday, he reminded me that his love is unconditional. It's not keeping a record of wrong. It's not waiting for you to fail again. It's that parenting love that just shines out of you. And, you know, you could always tell your kids how they could do a little better, right? My mom and dad could. They choose not to, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to choose not to, right? But it's because it flows from that unconditional love, that unconditional spot. And that is how the Father sees you. And if you haven't had a good relationship with your parents and you didn't understand that unconditional love from that place, I'm so sorry. But know that you can still love from that place, because it just comes out of you. It just comes out of you. And if you can imagine for a minute what that would be like, the love from God is that times 100. And he's not sitting up in some high sky place waiting for you to screw up. He's sitting there saying, come on, I want what's best for you. The second thing is, you know, about that we are all a miracle, and to look to the generations before us and realize that, you know, it was every choice that they made wasn't perfect. Every choice that I make isn't going to be perfect. Every choice that my kids make aren't going to be perfect. But we are each a miracle in this time, in this age. And for such a time as this, we're here. So live in it and love in it and be the best person that you can be. And know that you are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Even if you don't have biological people who are cheering for you all the time, there are people, and if you can't find them, man, my prayer is for you that those people become real lights in your path. They are shining for you and cheering you on, that you can do whatever God puts in your path today and tomorrow and the next day. And he's with you, and he's behind you, and he's in front of you. And it's just a miracle. And lastly, live in the season. Redeem the time. Spend the time that you need to spend with the Lord to take care of you, to take care of your family, to be in your relationships. I'm not saying that's going to be easy, and I'm not saying that all relationships are going to be great. They certainly are not. We're not living in La La Land. But I am the best version of me I am making the best decisions. I am living most comfortably in this skin, in this miracle that God's given me for today, when I am in right relationship with Him and when I am not neglecting the other relationships that are around me. And I shine to those around me, specifically my children, specifically those I work with, specifically those I love, the most when I am most connected to Him, because I'm comfortable in who I am and I know that He's got my back. And don't disappear. Don't disappear. And if you've been disappearing, take a minute and come back into the light, because your God loves you unconditionally. And there's no place that you can go that's too far from Him or that's too close to Him. That doesn't exist, So there's nobody who doesn't have work that they can do. There's nobody who doesn't need to spend more time with their Creator to know themselves and be able to love other people better. So it's Thursday and you almost made it to Friday. And I appreciate you so much for joining me here back for Thursday Thoughts Live. And I pray that you will join me next week on Thursday. Gosh, what will next week? It will be the 28th. The Thursday for more Thursday Thoughts. And if you are a graduate right now, or if you are a newly engaged or newlywed or anything like that, I just wish you all of the best things. Congratulations, all of the best things. I do want to give a shout out to one of my best friends, Jessica Lynch, and her husband Perry Lynch. Today is their 10-year wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary. Good for you. You're in the 10-year club. Excellent. God is so faithful. I am so happy for you guys. And I pray that you have a wonderful day today. And I pray that all of you have a wonderful day, because it's Thursday and you've almost made it to Friday and you'll get there. Thank you for joining me here at the Messy Sisterhood. Have a great weekend.